Around about 2,500 metres of climbing on a rolling stage 2, 175.2 kilometres from Hawick in the borders, to a complicated finish over 3 climbs on the approach to Duns. A looping circuit with Corbin Strong from Israel Premier Tech in the AJ Bell red leaders jersey, rolling out in bright sunshine in stark contrast to stage 1 out of Hawick and out onto the roads of the borders, and the attacks coming thick and fast. Stephen Bassett in the green jersey trying to get in the move of the day to consolidate his position in the lead of the King of the Mountains jersey. Eventually 6 riders establishing an advantage, including 2 from Ribble Welltight, Harry Tanfield and Charlie Tanfield, driving a powerfully composed group of 6 riders to an advantage that went to 3 minutes and beyond. Through the first of 3 intermediate sprints, it was the man in the white sprints jersey, Matthew Teggart of With Sun God, who unopposed took a further 3 points in that competition, as well as 3 bonus seconds. Harry Tanfield then punctured and needed a new front wheel. That stalls the progress of the breakaway somewhat, and they lost 20 seconds. Tanfield just about gingerly getting back on, surviving a few scares but making the junction, and the breakaway then working well together to grow their advantage. The Ineos Grenadiers, one of the teams towards the front, but at this point in the race, Corbin Strong had the Israel Premier Tech team all over the front. The work being done by Alex Dowsett and Veto Hollenstein once again. Sprint number 2 then, in Coldstream. This time Harry Tanfield, as well as the rider from Quebec, Travis Stedman, competing against Matthew Teggart for points as they headed towards the coast and back in to take on sprint number 3 at Reston, and once more victory went to Matthew Teggart. A perfect day out for him, picking up a grand total of 9 points to end the day on 18 points and firmly in control of the sprints jersey after 2 stages of racing. A crash in the peloton right at the back there delayed a few riders, including the entire Movistar team virtually, as the Ineos Grenadiers and Andre Amador, as well as Trinity Racing, took up the pace alongside Israel Premier Tech, and the climbing began. On the first of the 3 categorised climbs then, the Tanfield brothers, in the company of the rider from Global X, Uko Peltonen, and Travis Stedman, dropped away. That left just 2 riders at the front. Gloag attacked from Trinity Racing, Thomas Gloag, and the 2 riders left at the front were Matthew Taggart and young Adam Lewis from St Piran. They were joined, though, by the King of the Mountains, attacking for points on the first climb, human-powered health Stephen Bassett. But Matthew Taggart was able to counter-attack the American and take the 4 points at the top of the first of 3 climbs. At the second climb, then, Jake Stewart, with the peloton now all together, Jake Scott, I should say, nipped off the front and picked up a further 4 points to narrow the gap to Stephen Bassett, with 1 climb still remaining and an opportunity potentially for Jake Scott to take the King of the Mountains jersey. Then Bardiani CSF Davide Gaboro seized the moment as a becalmed peloton just set a slightly steadier pace to launch a long-range attack, and for a while he was off the front, building up a 30-second advantage. There was a scare at the black for the local man from Kelso, from DSM. That was Oscar Onley, the 19-year-old, going right over the top, unscathed though, just an unfortunate incident at the back of a nervy peloton. And Davide Gaboro on the final climb of the day to Hardens Hill within the last 7.5 kilometres was reeled in by Ineos Grenadiers' Richie Port, who did a huge turn on the front, catching Gaboro before the top of the climb. And that was the end of the attack from the Italian. Ineos Grenadiers then trying to set it up for either Magnus Sheffield or Tom Pidcock, both within touching distance of the race lead potentially. Jake Scott towards the top of the climb, once more nipping over the top to get himself the King of the Mountains points, and that was the moment as well that the German national champion, Bora Hansgrohe's Niels Pollitt, chose to attack. That attack was snuffed out, and then Dylan Turns from the Israel Premier Tech team counter-attacked. Big acceleration for the Belgian, newly signed to Israel Premier Tech. He went clear and brought a group with him, but it all came back together again on the approach to the final kilometre. Kees Bol, the big Dutch sprinter, latching onto the wheel of Jake Stewart as a GB lead out from Sam Watson, and Jake Stewart propels Stewart towards the finish line. Luke Lamperty from Trinity Racing also in the mix, as well as Tom Pidcock at this point, but Kees Bol from Team DSM coming on the right of Jake Stewart in the last 50 metres and throwing his bike at the line, just edged out the man from Groupama FTJ, riding in the colours of Great Britain. Jake Stewart beaten by Cees Bol by the slenderest of margins. A first victory of 2022 for Cees Bol, but he couldn't have left it later, and it couldn't have been a closer call. A photo finish that took a long time to decipher. Crossing the line, Jake Stewart, Cees Bol, neither of them knew who had won that sprint. It was as tight as they come, with Corbin Strong in the red jersey finishing in third place and picking up a further 4 bonus seconds. Victory then, in the end, confirmed for Cees Bol, a first win of 2022 and a 6th career win for the fast-finishing Dutchman. Corbin Strong, though, consolidating his advantage in the general classification. Another third place to add to his first place of yesterday and extending his lead on GC. A strong performance from the man from Israel Premier Tech, who will take some shaking in the general classification. Jake Stewart moving up to 2nd place on GC with Omar Fraile in 3rd, but Corbin Strong from the Israel Premier Tech team with a stranglehold at the moment on the GC.